This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv. This program is about stewarding the word God has given. It's about putting apostolic feet to prophetic hope. It's our mission to purposefully equip the world to transform their regions with God's love. We want to create an atmosphere of divine influence to the nations by walking in the power of His Holy Spirit with a faith that shapes the future. Welcome to Inside the Ark.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of Inside the Ark, where we talk about radical faith. And this one, we're talking about the good fight of radical faith. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Good.
Okay.
Really good.
Good to see you guys. Chris, you ready to get into it?
I am ready.
This is a message that you spoke, and we always try to give highlights from the message. Get right to it. Let's talk about the good fight of radical faith. How is the Lord speaking to you about this? And give us a high view of where you went.
Yeah, so I guess at the high level, when I was speaking on this particular message, I was really feeling like God has called every single person, and I feel like I'm always talking about this. God has called every single person right now. So if they're here alive right now, then He's called them for right now. And He doesn't just like have a factory that is producing, cars and they're spitting them out and they're all kind of the same. Like every single person is custom designed according to His purpose. He does it on purpose. And I feel like what happens is, because of that, the enemy wants to rob us. The kill, steal, and destroy wants to rob us of our ability to fulfill what God has made for us. And the tool that I think, the most effective tool God's given us to combat that, is faith. And I really feel like in order for it to be effective, it has to be completely 100% sold out. And that's kind of where you get this concept of radical faith. It's really not radical faith, it's just faith. But in the kind of the culture of today, where everyone is just kind of drifting along and kind of will go wherever the current trend takes them, faith seems radical. But that's the tool that God gives us to fight against the enemy's attempt to rob us from being able to do what God made us to do.
You said in the message that part of the problem that you wanted to highlight in order to bring solutions to was that we have settled in a life of drifting. The enemy has leveraged our blessing to cause us to settle. Mm-hmm. And then you went right into, so let's talk about this reality and then let's bring some solutions to it. So anything else about the enemy leveraging our blessing to cause us to settle?
Yeah. So if you think about like how easy things are right now, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. There's several different ways. And there's a couple ways I talked about it in the message, but just at the high level, if you just think about how easy life is right now, people are like, whoa, my life's not easy. Newsflash, my life's very difficult. No, what I mean is truly, the time that we live in, especially in America, in the United States right now, is one of radical abundance. Like, we can go out, we can exist right now in the studio in an air-conditioned room, even if it's 90 degrees outside, it's air-conditioned in here. We can drive to the grocery store and we can purchase stuff that's been harvested, and all of the work and even cleaned and everything for us is very easy. So what the enemy does is he will actually create a state of kind of like almost compliance, just because we don't have to fight for things like we used to, right? So we just kind of allow things to happen. Another way to look at this is, if you're going along and the enemy kind of presents this, hey, look, I think God wants you to do this other thing, but that's difficult. So I'm just going to present a really easy path for you. and present that in a way where it's just super easy to choose. And that becomes in and of itself a distraction from doing this hard thing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that blessings and living at this moment in history with all of the conveniences and modern, amazing technology and things that we have is bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying the enemy, just like he has for thousands of years, leverages everything at his disposal to trick us into a life of settling and not actually stepping into what God has. And that's why you have to have this kind of radical approach to taking that back of what God made you for.
So you're saying, hey, we must live a life of radical faith, but we find ourselves in the Western world where there's conveniences, but still there's this call. The Christian message, the message of Jesus applies, Becky, in every season of life. It wasn't just in third world countries where it was harder back in the time of the first century apostles, or, back even before then. So like how do we keep that radical faith? And Paul told Timothy, that's one of the verses that you referenced there, where Paul told Timothy, hey, fight the good fight of faith, wage a good warfare. Like he wanted him to be in this unshakable level of faith, but yet we live in the Western world.
Yeah.
So how do you do both, guys?
Well, this morning was in our garden, just spending some time, and this bumblebee I think it was a bumblebee. It was a bee. And I have this hanging plant that has these really tiny, dainty flowers on it. And he was going from flower to flower, and I watched as he sat on the actual petals of the flower and then thrust his whole body into the depths of this flower. Now, again, these petals are super dainty. They're very small. They're, and you would not even imagine how big this bee was. This bee took up the whole flower.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And yet, and I'm sitting there like, Lord, and I'm asking him, what is it? What's this about?
Yeah.
Why are you showing me this bee today in his process? And I think it was for this.
Wow.
The bee was designed with faith to believe that he could land on that flower, thrust his whole body into the depths of that flower, and he wouldn't fall off.
Right.
And he could get what the substance and the sustenance that came from that flower. And it was so fascinating because he knew which one he'd go to. Like you could see he did not just spend seconds in there. 2 minutes went by on one flower, and then he'd go to another one. And then he would come back to one that he had already visited and remember, I've been there. Let me go to a new one.
Wow.
So this bee had to know that he was designed. So he had faith in his design. Yeah. In order to do what was necessary. And as you just read that scripture about Timothy, I just was seeing that with the lens of what I learned today. Faith in our design is in how we are made. Mm-hmm. We were built to have faith. We were designed to have faith.
Come on.
Right.
And so when we are knowing and understanding our design, then it makes more sense that we'll walk in it.
Yeah.
So why does the devil try to hurt our faith or cause our faith to falter? Because he knows we've been designed to have faith.
Ooh, that's so good.
Wow.
So we were called to walk in radical faith. So we all have faith for different things. We're all believing God. So here we are. Yeah. We're going, okay, well, the Western world isn't so bad then, because actually, if you spin that thought, it ups our watermark on faith, because now we can take it to the next level. It's not just faith born out of struggle. although that happens at times. But now we're like, wait a minute, we can raise the watermark on faith. There's ordinary faith you talked about, and then there's radical faith. What's the difference?
Well, I think that according to, or not according to, but, you know, kind of building on what you're saying, Becky, is when we are functioning according to our design, we're able to do the things that God created us for, which would seem impossible to the ones that aren't made to do those things. So like, as you were saying that, I was thinking about these squirrels, right? So there's squirrels, and then there are these things called flying squirrels. And these flying squirrels, I don't know a lot about them, but these flying squirrels basically have like skin that they kind of act as a glider, and they can jump really far. They don't actually fly. They basically glide from far distances, so they can go from tree to tree. So to the other squirrel that doesn't have that, he's looking at that going, that's kind of amazing. He doesn't try to do it though, because he's going to fall on the ground. But to the one that was designed by God to do that, he just does it. Yeah. He doesn't have to decide to do it. So to talk about radical faith versus regular faith, I think that a lot of times the faith that feels and seems radical really is not radical from kind of like the root word of radical, being, you know, very extreme. It's actually just functioning according to our design.
Right.
It's just that what we're designed to do is so incredible compared to what is normal upon the earth. So I don't even like the word normal. So there's a lot of things that are common, and people say it's normal, but it actually, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal, right? It's normal for the flying squirrel to jump and glide between trees. Even though as far as squirrels go, that's not very common. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So in the earth right now, what's common is for people to not really become who God made them to be and do what he made them to do. And so the ones that are doing that seem radical, but really they're just flying squirrels. They were designed that way. It's not really a big deal. And so I think if we can step back from that and say, well, how do I obtain this radical faith? It is really being able to step back and fully believe that the way that God designed you and made you was on purpose. He didn't make a mistake. And if I am, according to that design, creating an opportunity for people to know Jesus, then it's really not a radical leap. You know what I mean?
Come on, yes.
I'm just performing like the way God made me to. And yeah, to the other squirrels that weren't designed that way, it can seem a little bit crazy, but really I'm just functioning according to God's design.
Isn't that awesome? God said to those who were operating in their gifts through the Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 14, he said, prophesy according to your faith. It's exactly what you're just talking about. We've all been given a measure of faith, and that all is meant to grow and steward and all of those things. You were already wired like that bee. Who knows? I can do this. I was born to do this. And they just do it. Like the flying squirrel who can fly. I mean, they just know it. There's a faith resident inside of you where you just know you are capable of doing this, and living beyond your ability is where you tap into that faith realm. And that's wonderful, because then you get to discover something that your faith was designed to do. And then now all of a sudden you've just raised the watermark because you just lived beyond your natural ability. I like that you said fear is actually faith in God's inability or unwillingness to do what he said he would do. So fear is faith in the wrong thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the most controlling thing that exists today, and maybe it's been this way for 6,000 years, I don't know, but I think the most controlling thing, it's not really a thing, but the most controlling thing is fear. And it's kind of like you come to the tree and you're a flying squirrel and you want to jump, but it's really far. It is just faith. So not jumping from the tree to the tree that you were designed to glide between because you're a flying squirrel. Not jumping is truly just having faith that God is unwilling to have designed you properly to go between the trees.
Come on.
Yeah. Wow.
That's really all that it is.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, I have a question, and it's one that you post in the message. What does the kingdom look like, or what should it look like? What does the new law of faith look like? So you kind of asked it all together, but you brought up this new law of faith. Talk to us about what is the new law of faith?
I think that as we're beginning and continuing to learn how God created us, and we're beginning to create a reality where we don't let the fear control us.
Yeah.
It actually creates an opportunity for us to actually do. So if we stay with the squirrel thing, it actually creates the opportunity for us to do the thing, which for the squirrel is to glide between these trees that are really far. So this actually creates this new environment where now we're doing things which are according to design, but we're doing things that we never could have done without having the faith to have played that out according to God's design in the first place. And to others, this will look radical. And actually, in some senses, it is radical based on the culture of the world that we live in. It is radical. It is very different and set apart and extreme. But it's not extreme from the standpoint of the way that God set it up. Like he actually created it to be this way. It's just that the world has settled for, kind of a subpar experience.
That's awesome.
It is. And I'm just thinking about Jesus. And I got this picture of Jesus, and he's like, part of his chief reminding officer role here on earth was to just say, hey, don't forget how you were designed.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm actually hearing you say. And so like what he was doing, and he said it, but what he was doing was showing this is the design and what happens when you live within you live out that design of radical faith. Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like if we just stay on the squirrel thing a little bit longer, it's kind of like a lot of times as Christians, especially in, kind of a prophetic, charismatic environment, God's saying to us, look, what I need you to do is have the faith to jump to that tree over there.
Yeah.
And you're going to fly and you're going to glide and it's going to be incredible. And you're like, ooh, I love that word. I love that word. I love that word. And then we stay pacing around on this tree. And then we're like, I need another word from the Lord. Tell me about the flying thing again. Tell me about the flying. Okay, you're going to jump and you're going to go from this tree to that tree and it's going to be incredible. Oh, that sounds amazing, Lord. That sounds amazing. And then we're running around on the tree and we're not jumping. And I think a lot of times we get caught in the trap of wanting to hear this, like a new, like, give me another word. Give me, like, tell me how great it's going to be. Tell me how great it's going to be.
Yeah.
And the Lord's saying, I believe, well, I just actually want you to jump. I set you up already. You don't need more things. I need you to act, because the next thing I need to tell you about happens on that tree.
Yeah.
You're still here.
Yeah.
So I can't, like, I know you want another word. The word comes on the next tree.
Yeah.
In order to get there, you have to do the thing that I've already instructed you to do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, so for me, I mean, actually for all three of us, because we all are pretty high driver, we don't need that much incentive usually to go take action.
Yeah.
Like this comes naturally. But even high drivers can hesitate when it is a very brand new first action and it's not necessarily clear how well that's going to go.
Right.
And if you've never jumped from tree to tree, it's very, scary.
Wow.
Because you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't, and the other squirrels that live over here,
Yeah.
they're not flying squirrels. So you don't have a pattern. You are literally setting out, leading the charge with the Lord. And he wants you to have the faith. That's why you can call it a radical faith, because you're jumping out there when that's not a common thing. It's like the 4-minute mile, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
When Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, they're like, that's not even possible for humanity. Sure enough, I think it was 6 weeks later or something like that, then another person did, and another person. And then by today, I think like 50 people or 60 people have all broken the 4-minute mile.
Mm-hmm.
Once you see it, it's less radical, but God's asking us to take those leaps with faith alone.
Yeah.
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 I think about, and I'm sitting here sort of getting this download while we're talking, and I'm like, what are the leaps of faith that we do that inspire others, or they increase faith in the earth? Like the 4-minute mile.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. What are the things that we do? Like, we have literally built airplanes because we watched a bird hover. Mm-hmm. And we're like, whoa, not only do they just fly straight or into the wind or against the wind, they hover, or the hummingbird or bees or, whatever. There are all kinds of people who study fighting tactics from certain, animals, panthers, and this type of thing. So what if the people in life and in history were actually called to inspire? You keep saying in this thing, well, let's just stay on the squirrel thing for a little bit. And I'm like, I feel like the Lord's on that. So I'm staying connected to what we're saying here, but I have this memory of how many times I've watched YouTube videos where now men are getting in squirrel suits.
Oh, yeah.
And jumping out of airplanes and flying for miles.
Yeah.
Not just from tree to tree.
Yeah.
But
Scary
literally,
stuff.
and they call it a squirrel suit because they've watched, and they're not huge. You won't see massive wings on these squirrel suits. They're small. Just taking the innovation, being inspired, and go, how can I take this to the next level? And I'm not sure that we're going to have conversations with squirrels in heaven, but if we do, we're going to say, dude, we got that from you.
Yeah.
And now we're flying miles out of a plane next to canyons and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So my point is, what does your leap do for someone else?
Wow.
What does it do for history? And what does it do for Christianity? These are the world changers that God is raising up right now.
So what I hear you saying is, God made you for a reason. It's going to require this radical faith, jumping like the squirrel.
Yes.
But that's only part of it, because there's also the effect that you have on the other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And once a faith is tapped into, then it becomes a common thing. Mm-hmm. And you've just raised the watermark of faith because you got in a squirrel suit and learned, oh, this isn't just for squirrels.
Right.
I tapped into somebody else's reality. Yes. And now it's become the new norm.
And now you sell lots of GoPro cameras by jumping out with a squirrel suit.
And that's what your testimony does to someone else.
Yeah.
It keeps upping the watermark of faith because now you get to tap into someone else's faith. That's why it's important to read the Bible. That's why it's important to tap into each other's stories.
Yeah.
Glory stories. Becky, last word.
I was actually going to ask Chris. So in the message, you talk about it's time for what we understood as ordinary faith to become now radical faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I'm hearing you say here is it's because the radical faith needs to become our ordinary.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Basically, what I believe is we're moving into a time where the example, I love what you said too, Bobby, the example that we are setting. Let me just back up a little bit really quick. We live in a time right now where people can know about what we're doing from all over the world. It's just an incredible thing happens on the news. A credible event happens, tragic, amazing, doesn't matter. We can now know about it within seconds, no matter where it is in the world. So we live in a time where, this is why I love the example that you use, Bobby. We live in a time where the things that the Lord does with and through us can have a significantly broader reach for the kingdom. Yeah. More people can benefit from what the Lord is teaching you and how he's using you than ever before in human history. And so that's why I say we're moving into a time and are in a time now. We're not really moving. We're there now, where in order for us to have the effectiveness and the reach that God really would intend for us to have, we have to have this radical level of faith. We have to have the kind of faith that causes other people to maybe take a deep breath and step into new areas that God has designed them for and called them to, that they may never have before. We have to be careful. We don't want to make everyone try to copy what we're doing. We certainly don't want the non-flying squirrel to try to jump to the far tree. But what we do want is for the people to be able to see the faith that we have, and for us to be able to, in a sense, share that faith with them so that they can step into what they're doing. And I think that the enemy gets too much credit for using the internet and video and radio and, just the social media for negative things. I think it's time for us to recognize that these are tools that we can use to help people learn about and know Jesus better.
Oh, this is so good, but we're out of time. Yeah, I mean, you got to go listen to the rest of the message. We're going to put the link right there for you in the show notes so you can get the full message. One last quote: if your situation is not in alignment with your calling, your assignment, or your destiny, you probably need to reinforce your faith rather than settle for something lesser. Go listen to this whole message. It's there for you, the link in the show notes. Also, go to our website, eaglemountain.global. There you can find all kinds of programming, and make sure to click on the give button to help us do more of this. We want to encourage you. Hope you've been blessed. Share it with someone who needs this word, and go listen to the full message. Chris, thanks so much for this message. It was amazing. Becky, thanks for your wisdom. As always, we love you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Inside the Ark. We hope that you've been blessed by this program. If you'd like to discover other episodes of Inside the Ark, please visit eaglemountain.global. We'd also love for you to prayerfully consider supporting this and other programs available on Eagle Mountain TV. You can give to this ministry by visiting eaglemountain.global and clicking on the Give tab. We hope to see you in the next episode.